So welcome, Guenther. I have some questions. We'll see if I actually ask those. We are thrilled to have you here. But why don't we start out with you telling us a little bit about what is Formula One? Not a bunch of cars going around the lap, but what is it in the mind? What is the bigger idea behind it?
Formula One is the pinnacle of motorsport. It's here since a long time. Very long time. It was commercialized. It went from Grand Prix racing to Formula One. Was commercialized, I would say, in the 60s to be sustainable and that it makes money. It's the cars with the highest technology. And what we can say, Formula One is also in a lot of technologies, because obviously we have and we spend a lot of money to go quicker. That is our aim. By doing that, you develop technologies which otherwise would take a lot longer to be developed. Like in the moment, the biggest example is now sustainable fuels. There is, I'm not saying billions going in, but hundreds of millions going into, because in 2026 we will have a new regulation and we still will use combustion engine. 50% of the power will come from combustion, 50% electrical, but it will be sustainable fuel. And there is the fuel companies, they are spending a huge amount of money, but not because in the moment the aim is not to make it for everybody. The aim is to make the best engine. And in 26, the combustion engine, because it changed a little bit the regulation like they are now, they're still being turbocharged, but it's still hybrid logically, but the turbocharger will not be used as an electric motor to boost and to create energy and to create electricity. It's just a normal turbocharger. So the power and the performance will come from the fuels. And that for a lot of money is invested, and that technology one day will be industrialized. And everybody should be able to use it and hopefully make the planet a better place with emissions. But back to Formula One, it's also, we create a spectacle based a lot on it, on technology. You've got a lot of sports out there, football, all the sports which are fantastic. But Formula One, I think it's one of the few, but for sure the most technological advanced sport. We have got hundreds of engineers working on the performance of the team, which is the car. So it's not only the sportsman, the technology, what we are doing is quite amazing. And I'm not saying that to tell how great we are. I'm saying what we are actually doing, is because our performance comes from the car. Obviously, we need the driver, and he needs to be good, and he needs to do all the good things to be fast. He needs to be fit. He's an athlete. But his tool is like, I went to see one of the rowing clubs before I was shown around. You see a lot in the boat going in there, but a boat has got limitations, what you can develop technological-wise. But Formula One car, if you see the aerodynamics, the vehicle dynamics, the engine, it's everything is at its maximum. I'll give another example. Composite technology. Composite technology came from the United States, from aerospace, went into Formula One, I would say, in the early 80s, where the first composite chassis were made, instead of aluminum, riveted together. And now, if you see these chassis, they are a piece of art, but not a piece of art because they're nice, because they give so much protection. They are very light for what they do. It's amazing. You could never do it with any other material, but the composite industry as well lives from Formula One, because Formula One always pushes the boundary. And once we do this stuff, people try to industrialize it, what was paid with the development money we put in, and then give it to other industries to make the world, I would say, a better place, hopefully, or at least to make progress technology-wise.
That's a great summary. One of the things we talk about in this class is sort of the value proposition. So you've talked a lot about the technology. Putting that aside, what is the value proposition of Formula One to its fans around the world?
I think the value is, when you do a sport needs to be made that with the money which comes in, you can sustain it and you can give people entertainment. Because people still want to be entertained. People don't want only to work and go home. They want to be entertained. They want to do something with their free time. And that is the value I think we bring to the spectator by putting on, I call it a show, by doing a sport which people need to want, and it needs to be a good show. And I think we can go to that one. Formula One in the United States, until maybe 5 years ago, people knew what Formula One was, but nobody really follow that. Maybe they watch the odd thing there and then, but they not really follow that. So all of a sudden, an American company takes over Formula One, promotes Formula One, buys it out from the old stakeholders, and I cannot even say spicing it up. He just makes it more interesting for the American market, and all of a sudden we have got success. But that, I think, the value which Formula One brings to is entertains people and keeps people engaged, creates a lot of jobs. I mean, we are employing a lot of people in Formula One. Formula One as a business is very profitable. Not every team, we being one of them, which isn't profitable. So don't speak with my team owner. But it's just like a lot of things which Formula One brings to give value to society.
So just touching on that, what makes a race entertaining? What makes it, if you wanted to make it more entertaining, what does that need to have?
Fighting for the win, and I know where you're going there.
No, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere with that. That's later in the talk.
That's later.
That's later in the talk.
Entertainment is show people. I say now fighting, racing is like fighting, and that is, I think we know it from the old Romans. Fighting was a sport. We fight on the racetrack, obviously we don't want to hurt anybody, that's never the intention, so don't quote me on that, but it's like, in the end you want to fight for the win. But this year, obviously the season, one driver, I think it won most of the races except 3 in total now. I don't even remember it, he won so many, Max. So, but there is a lot more going on, and in the end, what people want to say is just good competition.
What is a Viking comeback?
How you mean Viking comeback?
You're the one who said to him, right? This is a Viking comeback.
At that time, we had 2 difficult seasons before this one. And this one seems now, by the way, a long time ago, because we are struggling again a little bit in the moment. I'm fully aware of it. This seems like this was 20 years ago, but it was only last year. So it's good to know that it's possible to do. So Viking comeback, it was like, obviously the Vikings come from the area where Kevin is from Scandinavia. Obviously the Danes claim them to themselves, the Vikings. So, no, it was just like when you had 2 years of struggle, just to keep the team alive, to do what you need to do. The year before we had a lot of crashes, and all of a sudden you score points in your first race. It's just like a relief for everybody in the team, and it's just like an emotion coming out when you do this, and you work really hard. Everybody works really hard, not me. I do the least, I must say, in our team, but it's just like, and then you just come up with this sayings, and as you all know, sometimes the F word comes out of my mouth, even if I don't want it,
Great. As part of that race, you were talking about the combat and the competition and fighting. One thing it took me a while to learn, I guess I don't know when it came in the regulations, but there's something called DRS. Can you tell us what that's about, what it's for? I think, did I get the letters right?
Yeah, you got the letters right, yeah. Okay. DRS is a device which on the straights, depending, it could be from 1 to 3 straights, depending on the circuit, how it's laid out. On the long straights, you have a device that the rear wing, you can hydraulically, it takes the drag away, and you always go faster when you take the drag away. But you need to be within what there is the measurement points, again, depending how many DRS zones there are equally measurement points where you need to be within a second of the car in front of you. Otherwise, you're not allowed to activate it. And then you activate it and gives you basically, when you're behind the car, the possibility to overtake. And that was made to make the racing more interesting. It is, in the end, there was a lot of critique, it's artificial, but it is artificial. But otherwise, these cars are so close together, you would have almost no overtaking, and therefore it was invented, and it is artificial, but not to an extent like it could be set in other series. You have got a boost button where you have got maybe 30 horsepower more at a certain time you can use whenever you want. Over a period of time, maybe in IndyCar you can use it 1.5 minutes in a complete race. A boost button is about 30 horsepower more. It's something similar without altering the mapping of the engine. It's just like an aerodynamic device which gives you a better chance to overtake or to get close to the car, and then when you get into the braking zone, there where you overtake normally, you're very close and you can go around the car in front of you, because by the cars being so close together, normally you need a delta to overtake on lap time, which is always up to the lowest one, and I don't remember which circuit it is, but you need a second delta being faster on the racetrack to be able to overtake. And in some racing circuits, it's 2 seconds. So if without a device, it's very difficult to do, because to be a second faster lap, you need to have a very good car, or the car in front of you very bad tires at the stage.
So it's the car behind gets the benefit to try to...
The car behind, yeah, sorry, I forgot to say that.
No, that tries to catch up there. Are there anything else that they do to encourage the competition?
No, the only thing what is done, but that's done in development. The teams, twice a year, it's readjusted how many hours in the wind tunnel and how many calculating power for CFD you have got. And the teams, the lower teams in the Constructor Championship get more hours in the wind tunnel. It's, I think from first to last, it's about the last team gets about 20% more wind tunnel capacity to do, because all this is monitored. In Formula One, everything is regulated, so you cannot use the wind tunnel as much as you want anymore. It's all well regulated, how many runs you can have, how many sessions you can have, how much you can share it between CFD and wind tunnel, and to equal the playing field a little bit, the teams which are doing worse getting more wind tunnel time.
You mentioned CFD. Can you tell us what that stands for?
Computational Fluid Dynamics, I think it stands for. Yeah, I mean, I have to think about something, because when you use just the shortcuts, but that's what it stands for. It's doing aerodynamics with the computer. It's a technology which is used since a long time. And again, this is one of the technologies which I spoke before. We develop, and then the development money we put into it is for the benefit of aeroplanes, for the benefit of the car industry to do better, because we always develop also that technology with the money is in the sport. So this is a technology we are using quite a long time now. And I'm somehow sometimes amazed that every year we make progress in making the technology better and better. But for example, I give an example where now we need to do a lot of work. Last year, the regulation were changed. And since a long time, F1 cars now have ground effect anymore. You all know ground effect, you close up on the side of the car, and the downforce is created more and more from the underbody. The car is very low on the ground, and it's a way to, going back to the DRS question, that we can overtake better, because if your aerodynamics come from top, it's like a mushroom effect behind the car. And then the car which follows, as soon as you get into this mushroom, you lose all the air on your car and you go slower. You cannot overtake because there is no air. And your car is not pushed down, and you go slower until you're out, and then you do this, but you can't overtake. So it was decided to use a ground effect again, which disturbs the air behind the car less. So last year, we go out the first time testing with ground effect cars. 10 teams having used technologies, very advanced technologies. We go out there. We go, I think it was in Barcelona. We were the first team to run the new regulation car. The driver goes down the straight. Normally, when you do the first test run, you go and watch the car, even if you cannot understand anything, a car going by, but it's pretty cool to do. And this car starts to jump.
Dolphin. Yeah, dolphin.
Yeah, like a dolphin, yeah. And I was like, what the hell have we done wrong here? You know, and you always think, oh, if everybody else has solved this problem, you know, this will be bad. So we come in and it's like, what happened here? And then obviously I knew from ground effect systems like this from DTM, and we had a similar problem there, this bouncing coming, because you basically stole the car. You go down, you stole, the car comes up, and does like this. And these movements, they are very harsh. The driver, and we couldn't go over 250 kph. Anyway, you are in complete panic mode. All the other 9 teams go out. Guess what? They've got the same problem. And again, this is technology which now we need to, it was investigated how to, and everybody uses CFD and wind tunnel, but it was not detected why we do it. But now, by having learned this, I think in the future some people will have advantage of this stall effect, what we did, this bouncing of the cars. So that's what CFD is doing for us.
Outstanding, and that's a great segue. So you've been chief engineer on several teams. And so what I wanted to do is, because we are teaching this out of engineering school, I want to go over a little bit of the tech in the car. How much of the car's speed is due to the aerodynamics and the wind tunnel testing, and how much is due to, let's ignore the driver, we're just talking about the hardware. How much is due to the aerodynamics, and how much is due to the other parts of the car?
The aerodynamics are the dominating factor on an F1 car, and that is, I would say, like vehicle dynamics, suspension, and because it's so dominated by the aerodynamics, the suspension just can make it wrong. You cannot have a better suspension. You can just have a bad suspension to go fast. It sounds very simplistic, but it is like this. You can mess the suspension up, but suspension development in F1, the suspension, you guys would not believe how little the suspension, it's called a suspension, but the movements is millimeters of a suspension because it's all dominated by the downforce of the car. Obviously, you've got the engine, but the engine as well, once the regulation is stabilized, the engines are very, very close together. If I would say, if between the four or five manufacturers we have got now, if there is 10 horsepower difference at top power, it's already a lot. It's more like how you deliver the power, how you recuperate energy for the battery, for the electrical part of it. That is where the development is. But the rest is dominated by aerodynamics, and that is the performance differentiator, absolutely. And I would say 90%.
So I think I'll touch in on this point. You mentioned that the ground effects is coming back. In the late 80s, I think it was, they introduced ground effects. And some of the cars who had it, I think if I read it correctly, was 6 seconds faster on a lap. And then Formula One banned it. And my understanding is because the cars were going too fast. And I also understand they had turbos on gasoline engines, and they were banned because the cars were going too fast. So I got two questions here for you. Why is going too fast a problem? It seems like that's exactly what they're out there to race on. And then the second question is, why do you think it's coming back?
First, a car being too fast, the problem is getting dangerous. At some stage, your safety aspect of the car is inferior to your speed. You know that if you have a bad accident, somebody can get hurt. You never can avoid it in motorsport to have a bad accident because you cannot plan for everything. But you always need to try to get better and better. And therefore, the cars could have got better and faster because we followed up with safety. Safety, people don't see it, but in the end, when you do a car, the chief engineer, number one is always safety. And because human life needs to be protected. Can you do it 100%? No, but it is one of you have a good chief engineer, a good designer, if he always says, God, is this safe or not? Because that is, I think, as a human being, we need to be very respectful of that. We can go fast, but if it is dangerous, do not do it. It's like in motorsport, this is quite, you don't need to say it, you never mention it, but that is what you do. And if you do something which is not quite right, even in a race, you know something is on the limit, you retire a car. When you know you've got a problem which could end up in a big accident, you stop. You take no risk on that one. So still happens because you cannot see everything. We are still humans. Second part of the question was
the second part, why is it coming back? Because if it was,
sound effect.
Yeah, why if it was too fast, and by the way, it was too fast around the corners. And my understanding is, you'd have serious crashes.
First of all, it came back a little bit different. In the old days, they had skirts on it with ceramic on the bottom, and they really sealed the bottom up, and the car sucked down immensely. So we don't have that one going anymore, and it came back because of the overtaking. We just tried to make overtaking better again because with the regulations of the car before this ground effect car, overtaking was getting impossible because you got within 2 seconds behind the car and you lost completely the front. You understeered. You couldn't go around the turn anymore because there was no air because of the wake around the car in front, which was produced by the car in front of you, which was also changed from last year when we had the first time ground effect back. For this year, it was changed. We reduced a little bit because what I said that bouncing, the purposing, how it is called, I remember the word now, the purposing was too harsh for the driver. And again, it wasn't good for the human body because the hits on the plank were very hard. So they reduced a little bit and the sides of the diffuser in the back were changed. So we had to lift it a little bit. So the ground effect was a little bit reduced. But it came back the main thing was to clean up the wake of the car in front of you. I just would explain. The monocoque, the safety is in the monocoque for the driver. He's protected by the monocoque. And in Formula One, you go to the limit, and then you find out you overdid it because of safety. A monocoque about 20 years ago, weighed 40 kilos. 40 kilos, which is nothing. Now a monocoque weighs 80 kilos, just for safety. It's a different story because we learn so much every year. You have a big crash. It was more protected, and that is also the reason why we can go faster again, because we know we get more and more protection. But every time we learn something, we introduce it. And if you think in 20 years, normally you would say, that's not a good development. You doubled the weight of your monocoque. We doubled it, but maybe the safety now is by 10. By doubling the weight, maybe, and I'm estimating here, this is not a factual multiplicator of protection, what you've got for the body. But 20 years ago, if you would have the crashes we have got these days, there would be a lot of people hurt. But now, the monocoques are, as the technology we have got applied is very safe.
So, I mean, part of what I'm understanding is you're pushing the limit of safety. So you go as fast as you can without compromising safety. And if you can go faster as safe, then you will go faster as safe.
Absolutely, because that's the only way we can do it. That's the only way we can make cars faster, by also always looking after safety of everybody around us. Because the last thing what a sport needs is hurting people, as I said before.
Right. Let's go through just a little bit more of the technology. I don't know if there's anything you want to say on brakes. If not...
The brake technology as well. We have got carbon composite brakes. The discs are not steel, they are composite. And now you will all say, yeah, road cars have got that as well. Yes, but Formula One had them a long time ago, and they were born out of, because aeroplane used the carbon brakes, and the first carbon brakes in Formula One were made of, used the old brake disc of a plane which was used up too much, so they had to change them, take them, machine them down, they fit a race car. That is how creative we get. And then, obviously, by doing that, we said, oh, we need to make our own one, and you develop that technology. And these days, we have got carbon ceramic mainly in road cars. We've got also some carbon brakes, because carbon brakes, the problem with carbon brakes is they need a minimum temperature to work, because otherwise, if they're cold, they break very badly, you know, and the minimum temperature is pretty high, you know, it's about 280 degrees C that you have to have a minimum. So when you go out of the garage in a road car, until if you arrive in the city, you never get there. So but that technology as well developed out of Formula One for the road cars. And obviously it's high-end road cars, but I think in 20 years, every road car with brakes will have carbon ceramic brakes. I don't think we will have steel left.
And I think you bring up one of the interesting points, particularly relevant to our class, is a lot of the innovations in Formula One came from other fields. There's a lot that came from airplanes and from other areas that they brought in and said, as you just use a perfect example, but I believe some of the aerodynamics, some of the wings, some of the other technologies that came in.
Absolutely, and I would say 90% comes from the space technology, aeroplanes, a space project, because they are as well advanced, but then you adapt that and put it into a car and develop it for the car. But a lot of like composite chassis came from aerospace, you know, they were the first ones to do it, and that is how it came into Formula One.
Great, let's take a look at a few other technologies here. So we're looking at the engines. The engines are 1.5 liters now, or 1 liter?
1.6.
1.6 liters, they all have to be V6s. So this is the energy recovery. Can you tell us a little bit about the energy recovery? Because when I went to my first F1 race in person, only one, hint, was in Melbourne, and they're explaining to me these cars have almost 1,000 horsepower peak, and part of it's coming from the hybrid. They're just 1.6 liters, which seems super small to have 1,000 horsepower. Tell me a little bit about the energy recovery and what that's all about.
It's called the MGUH. It's a turbocharger which works in both ways. It can also use the electricity to create boost for the combustion engine, but also you recover energy to put it into battery. So when you hear the word clipping at the end of the straight, you don't, when you start to brake, you use the turbocharger to charge your battery. And it's always a big game between when you charge and when you decharge the battery, when you use the electric power. But also that technology, and it was at some stage, I think there is one road car, it's a supercar, it's the Mercedes one, it's called, it's a supercar, which is using the same system. But at some stage, I know that Volkswagen tried to develop this for the road cars, but it was too complex in the end, you know, this turbocharger, because they couldn't get it industrialized. And then obviously the EV technology moved on, and everybody moved to full EV going forward. But it's a technology which is made again progress it came out, the regulation, I think 2014, the first time. And when I now look at one of these engines from 2014 and look at them now, you think that engine from 2014 is about 25 years old, not 8 years old, because it moved so quick, the technology. But what you try to do is just efficiency of the engine, and the engine has got an efficiency of 50%, which has never been on a combustion engine before. This is a technology which was developed in Formula One, and hopefully it helps in the future of combustion engines, because I think, I know I'm controversial here, I think combustion engine will stay around in this world. Obviously, we need to work on the fuels to fuel these engines. They need to be better, they need to be sustainable, we need to reduce CO2, everything. I'm fully with that, but I think developing this technology will help also for the future, for the mass transportation in the world.
And just to put it in context, I think a standard car is around 20% efficient, 20-ish.
Yeah, they are now in the mid-20s now. Mid-20s, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the steering wheel. It seems like to me that you took 100 engineers, put them in a room and said, don't think about ergonomics or how we could use it, just make it as technically complex as you possibly could and come out of the room.
Yeah, I'm always asked, do you know how our steering wheel works? No, I don't. I know roughly what it does, but if I would have to adjust it, it wouldn't be possible. The steering wheel is I mean, for sure a lot of you play on the simulator, on the games, race there, and they can adjust so much. They can adjust. I mean, I don't think I can remember them all. Obviously, the engine modes, the charging modes, all that on the engine side is adjustable, because depending where you are in the race, if you need to attack and defend, there's different modes on the car, how you decharge the battery, how you charge it again so you can attack the next lap and things like this. Then you have got the differential. You can lock the differentials. That means how you get out of a turn, how much under and oversteer you have got. You can basically your balance. You have got certain tools from corner to corner. They adjust it. There are tools there, and then you have got the brake from each turn has got a different brake map, for example, and you have got the brake by wire, which is basically the electric motor braking the rear tires. We don't need brakes anymore because we want that energy going back into the car by braking, so to charge the batteries. So there is. It's immense what these guys do, but it's all. Each car has got his own engineer, which is just doing the controls of the car. It's called the controls engineer, obviously, because he adjusts everything from the start, because the start is very technical as well, how the clutch, because the clutch is so small, so a little bit of slip, and you get to overheat the clutch and you're done. So there's so much, but it's basically the control element of the car. It's all on the steering wheel. In the old days, for example, the brake balance, and actually Michael Schumacher was the first one to have different brake adjustment for which turn he goes in, because with the brake between rear, putting more to the rear, for example, you can get away with understeer and things like this. But he always, when you see in the old, it's not this long ago, 20 years ago, he always was down there adjusting something. It was the brake balance he was adjusting. Now it's all done electronically, because we have got the brake by wire, the BBW, because the rear wheels are you brake with electric motor, which is charging the battery. All this technology was developed out of this, and I could talk maybe an hour here about this, but then I think I would bore you.
No, that's great. I'll move on to now the safety, and this is a funny-looking black thing on the top here called a halo. And this came in 2018, or was it later than that?
No, I think you're right. It was 20. Yeah, it was 20.
Somewhere around.
Yeah.
2018. Yeah. And this is fabricated by a third-party vendor. Everyone is required to have it, and so no one team is making it. And there was a lot of complaints when it came in, but I think it's been one of the best things for safety.
Absolutely, and I must admit.
And you know where I'm headed next, just so you know. We've got a video we'll watch here in a second.
Back to the halo. It was one of the things, old-time racers, and I'm part of that because I'm pretty old now, we didn't like it. We didn't like it because, racing is dangerous if it is too safe. Very differentiate between a good driver and a bad one, and a lot of people were against it. We had a similar scenario, the Hans system. You guys don't know a race car driver without a Hans system. I do. when the Hans system came, a lot of drivers didn't want it, but I think it's the best since we had the Hans. I think there were no broken necks anymore, because before the biggest cause of that in racing was when you had an impact, you snap your neck because you couldn't keep your head in place. So now everybody has it. It's not discussed. The halo the same. It came. We shouldn't have this. People will take stupid risks because they think they are protected and things like this. It has been a very good thing. But I always say we are all human beings, and sometimes we need to think beyond ourselves. And it's difficult, but you learn. I learn out of these things for the future. And I say another thing. I wasn't around when people drove around without a helmet. It was the same for you young guys, people without a hand system that had a neck restraint system. Now if you go on a motorbike without a helmet, why you do that? You don't need to do that. You need to protect your life.
Right.
And it's all coming this way. And the halo was another thing. Without the halo, I think since 2018, we would have quite a few dead people. And now every single-seater car in every series has got a halo.
Right. I want to show you an episode from a couple years ago. It happens to be one of your cars, but to me it's a testament of what the technology can do and also what the drivers put themselves at risk for. So that was pretty powerful when I think those of us who saw it in the original Netflix. I think it's a testament to technology and safety. I have to ask, what was your thoughts? Obviously they caught you a little bit on camera, but what did that crash mean to you?
When you see it now and when you're there, I always say it's a very long time, but it's a very short time. And it's very difficult to define because, I'm in racing a long time. I've seen bad accidents and you just see it. And, first you realize it's our car. Okay, what is happening here? And then it's like, and when you see the flames, if he's not coming out in the next half a minute, whatever, there's no good end. You just know, and you already think about it, how to deal with that one. And then, while you think about that one, you try to keep control what people do, because sometimes people, in the team, like one of the engineers on the radio, he's okay. I said, no comment, because I wasn't sure it's okay. You cannot say anything, because every little word which is said, you need to control also what goes to the world, to his family. You don't know. And you just, and then all of a sudden it's over and you see him coming out and it's all good. So now is how we deal with that situation. He's out, he could have a broken leg, a broken arm. In this moment, I say it now with respect, who cares? In the end, he's alive. That is the only thing which counts in this moment, So, and then you just go into your mode. We need now to tell the whole world he's okay. Because there is a lot of people, friends, which don't know, and everybody's panicking, because like we panic, and that is what you do, and then it's back. Obviously you try, you had somebody there which told you what is going on with him. They said he had a broken, I think it was the foot is something broke where he was, but in the end he was a little bit burned, and then you just go and I went and thanked the doctor, Dr. Ian, which, for me, to do this, what he did, is still emotional for me every time I see him, because the guy didn't have to do it, but he went in there. To go near a car which burns like this is not nice to do. I was once on fire in rallying, and I know what fire means, and the guy did go there trying to help, which he's the doctor. He's not the first rescuer, but he wanted to help, and that's what you do, because it's so much respect when you see it. And then obviously you try to speak with the driver on the telephone, because Romain was in the hospital, and then the next thing is you go back racing, guys. It is like this, but this ended all good in the end. You just have to at night, it's like I went to the hospital to see him, and then you just go to bed and said, today was a good day.
Yeah. It just amazes me what we're able to do with technology. And for those of you that wonder why it took so long, he was actually unconscious for a long period of time, and then he woke up, and as soon as he woke up, he climbed out of the car that's there. I want to switch a little bit to talk about you, because not only is he great in Formula One, but you have a very entrepreneurial and I would say innovative sort of career path. I know you started in rallying, and then I just want to fast forward a little bit. You moved from a few clubs or organizations eventually into Formula One with Red Bull. And What's
Jaguar.
that?
With Jaguar.
With Jaguar. Okay,
sorry.
with Jaguar there. So why don't you tell us a little bit there and sort of how you ended up moving to the States and a little bit of that progress. And if you want to take it all the way up to founding Haas, that'll be great. Otherwise, I'll ask you afterwards how you get there. So,
okay, let's talk through the whole thing. I mean, I grew up in northern Italy, in the mountains, you know, motorsport, nowhere near. My family, nothing to do with it. I just liked racing cars. I don't know why. Don't ask me. We'll never know. Don't need to know. So I did my national service, moved to Belgium. I did an apprenticeship as a mechanic. After national service, instead of going back to school, I went to Belgium to work on race cars. That was my career, you know. So, and from there, I just worked in rallying, and I was, at the end, my last job in rallying was technical director of Fourth World Rally Team with Colin McRae. Some of you guys know who Colin McRae was. He was one of iconic rally car drivers, a Scotsman, which unfortunately passed away in a helicopter accident. He was a good friend as well. And then one day I got the phone call from the secretary of Niki Lauda, which some of you will know as well, very iconic F1 driver with the red hat, you know, and one ear, what I always told him, you know. So he was the CEO of Jaguar Racing, which at the time was owned by Ford Motor Company and raced in Formula One. And the secretary called me up and said, Mr. Lauda would like to speak with you. And for me, Niki was, when I was a kid, a hero because he was world champion. He was Austrian, I'm Italian, but very close to the border, so iconic. I said, I phoned Mr. Lauda up, and he said, I want to have dinner with you, because he didn't ask you, he told you from day one. So I said, yeah, I will be in Vienna in 2 weeks' time, because we had a rally there, a national rally. And I went for dinner with him, and I asked before about Niki, and Niki was very direct. I mean, and he said, oh, you will have dinner, and in half an hour he will send you home. So we were there 2 hours. And I had a good conversation with, at the time he was still Mr. Lauda for me. And the next day in the morning he called me up, out of the blue, Mr. Steiner, you're going to work for me. Okay, Mr. Lauda, what I'm going to do? I don't know yet, but I will tell you. All right then, you know. And that was my way into Formula One. I had to work that year, still finishing the Fourth World Rally Car project off. And then moved to Jaguar Racing. We were 1 year there. They got rid of Niki Lauda because he wasn't appreciated his way, how he dealt with things. I was offered the job. I didn't want to stay because without him, for me, I got very close to him. So I felt a little bit alone without him, and I left as well. So then I did DTM. The German touring cars at the time was very nice cars. And then I got back into Formula One when Mr. Mateschitz, the owner and founder of Red Bull, because I got to know him from before when he was rich, but he wasn't Mr. Red Bull. He was still a normal, very normal human being, you know, very, very great mind of marketing, the greatest mind ever I met, you know. He passed away, I think, 2 years ago now, or last year. And he called me up and said, hey, I'm going to buy Jaguar Racing. You want to come back to Formula One? And I went back to Formula One. Was with Red Bull Formula One team for 1.5 years. Then, like in life, sometimes you get on with people, some you don't get on, and I didn't get on very much there. And Mr. Mateschitz said, I want to open a NASCAR team in the States. Are you interested to go to the United States? And I always had dreams in my life, you know, and motor racing was one of them. And doing something in the United States, for me, it was something I thought I would never achieve, you know, because coming to the United States from Europe is not easy with the visas and stuff like this. And somehow this opportunity arose. I asked my wife, and we said, let's do it, you know. If it doesn't work, we're going to do something different. So I came to the United States in 2006, moved to Charlotte, where I still live. I still live there. And I opened up the NASCAR team for Red Bull. Then again, after 1.5 years with Red Bull, it didn't work out how it should have been. And I left, but I quite liked I liked the United States. I didn't really want to go back to Europe full time. I was here only 2 years at a time, and I was like, I would do a little bit more here. I saw a lot of opportunities, and the United States are still a land of opportunity. I mean, I experienced it myself, you know. So I left, and I had offers to go back to Europe to work there. I said, I tried to do something on myself. I always wanted to have something which I own, because motorsport is a very strange industry. You can be in and you can be out. It's a bit like football, you know. You're a manager, you're having good results, you're great. You're having bad results, you're useless, you know. And so I said, I want a little bit more security. I tried to found my own company. I did it with a business partner in Charlotte. We opened up a composite company and started that one. Enjoyed myself and doing that. And then, as Professor Ricketts said, we go straight to Haas. While I was doing this, I don't know if I missed racing or I just knew too much about it and I saw opportunity. I started to write up a business plan for an F1 team owned by Americans, because I said there is opportunity. There is a lot of money in America. There is a lot of entrepreneurs in America, people which takes risk investing in things, which can do it. And I wrote up this business plan just in my own free time. I knew a lot of people in Formula One. Obviously, I've got very good connections, so I asked for help. And then went around to see people which could fund it. And found Mr. Haas, which after I talked with him 1.5 years. And one thing I must say, I never tried to sell it to him. I was said like, Mr. Haas, I'm not here to sell you. You need to want this because I cannot sell you this. Because owning an F1 team, it's a burden. It can go backwards. So that's why I don't want to sell it. If you want to do an F1 team, I'm here to help. If you have got questions, I'm here to help. But I'm not pushing you hard, I think he liked that approach because I had my job to do with my company, So I was not depending on income from that one. So I was pretty good. And at some stage he said, let's do an F1 team. Obviously, then the thing comes, how in the hell am I going to do that now, It's like, I will do it. And, you just work on it and with connections and with ideas. I did it. And at the time, because Professor Ricketts will ask me the next thing, why you think you are still here while a lot of F1 teams which started a little bit before us are gone. They came 3-4 years and then they're out of business. We sat back with Mr. Haas, obviously, and said, we are not more intelligent than the other people in F1, because we are not. It's pretty intelligent people there. And in general, in life, successful companies, they are not stupid people running them. We haven't got more money, or Mr. Haas didn't want to spend more money than the other times, and at that time, there was no budget cap in F1, so people spent up to $500 million in an F1 team at the time. And we didn't have $500 million. We had maybe 150 million. So how we do this? And then I had done a project for Red Bull a little bit back with when Red Bull bought Minardi, which then became Toro Rosso, which now is Alfa Tauri. I did all that. Nobody knew that because I was doing it, again, for Mr. Mateschitz, him personally. So anyway, I came up with the idea to work with the current manufacturer together, buy as much as possible of their technology, and start off like this. At the time, I had a good friend of Stefano Domenicali, which at the time was the team principal at Ferrari. Now he's the CEO of Formula One. And I went to see him and said, Stefano, this is my plan. Would you help? I said, sure, let's do it. Let's do something different. And therefore, we started buying as much as possible. And obviously, we then had a base in Italy. We had a base in England. We had a base in America. You can imagine all the naysayers we got from Formula One. This will never work to have companies in three countries on 2 continents. And, we went to Australia in 2016 and we scored points in our first race. And everybody was like, how did you do that? By doing it different, and doing it different. It came because I knew the industry pretty well and the people which played in it, obviously the regulations behind us. There were a lot of loopholes at the time because nobody had done this. So we could exploit more than it's possible now because behind us they closed a lot of loopholes because obviously the big teams all of a sudden were worried that somebody else comes in and does the same principle and helps even a bigger team to get better. So in the end it all worked out and therefore is why we are here. And then also to continue, I don't want to take the questions away from Professor Ricketts, but at the time Formula One was not a good business. I mean, there were teams going out of business. You could buy a team for $1. Now, a team, it's worth $1 billion. From $1 to $1 billion in 8 years is pretty good, though. So for Mr. Haas, it ended up pretty good, his investment.
So, quick question for you. Why did you think you would succeed? What was in your mindset that you thought that, you knew racing, you knew how hard it was, you knew how everyone else struggled. What was going through your mind when you were putting this together and launching it?
It's just the principle we used. And, I'm a racer at heart. And the racer always thinks he knows better than anybody else, and keeps on pushing. Because in the end, you do your calculations and you can do it. Because we are all humans. I know the other people, what they're doing. And it's just like one of these things, is sheer determination that you want to do it because I like to go racing, and in the end to prove something that it can be done when so many people have failed. That's also something satisfying, you know, and that for finding somebody who supports you financially to do this is fantastic. But then, again, you just want to do something. I think it's sheer passion of wanting to succeed, you know. Sometimes you don't really think, you think short to mid-term, but not long-term. And I couldn't have envisaged that at some stage these teams would be worth this amount of money because I didn't have that vision. I mean, I'm not claiming that one, you know. So it's just like, when you want to start something, you need to be determined, and you also need to be dealing, if it doesn't work out, to move on, because that can happen as well. But at the time, when you do it, you need to be convinced you do your best, and then if it isn't good enough, either somebody else will take over or you need to do something different.
One last question for me before I hand you over to a student panel, and I ask all of our speakers this question. If you look back to when you were 20, what do you wish someone had told you then? You know, our audience here is principally undergraduates, so we're 18 to 22, sort of at that age period. What had you wished somebody had shared with you back then that you think would have made a difference?
I think I would wish now, obviously it's difficult to say, because I think for me, I've got a big satisfaction to have my own business, you know, because you own it. And at the time, I liked the idea, but somebody would have told me, Guenther, invest some time to have something which you own, not just working for somebody, you know. And it's nothing bad to work for somebody, but for me personally, it was like I should have done what I did when I started my own company in 2009, maybe in 1999, 10 years earlier, because it's just like this thing, the satisfaction you get out of that is pretty great.
That's fantastic. Our panelists, if you guys want to come on up.
Okay, well, thank you for coming. My name is Anna, as we met earlier. But one of my questions was, you were talking a little bit about DRS zones earlier, explaining what they were and all that. You know, there's been some talk about trying to make racing a little bit more exciting and that fighting a little bit more exciting. So a lot of people have been talking about just getting rid of DRS zones completely and just like allowing racers to use it for the whole track. Like, do you have any thoughts or feelings on that?
I mean, the DRS zone on doing the whole track is dangerous because you lose so much downforce. If you do it in a corner or by mistake or you try to do something, it's pretty dangerous. I think we, in Formula One, because the domination of Max Verstappen in the moment, people say there is not enough fighting going on. To be honest, I was thinking it will go away, the domination, before the end of the season. I think he can still hang on to it. Obviously, Ferrari won one race lately, so it is going away. But hopefully for next year, we have got 2 or 3 teams which can fight for a win, and then nobody will speak about that.
Yeah, it works. So since we're in the US, let me ask you a question about the US market. Do you think that, you know, with 3 US races sold out this year and Drive to Survive, do you think that the Formula One brand has finally cracked the US market? And, you know, if so, if not, if there's more, you know, room to grow, and what is Haas's role in that, given it's a US team?
Yeah, I want to go back a little bit there to explain a bit. Formula One in the US, I mentioned before briefly, before Liberty Media took over. Liberty Media is the owner of Formula One now, and it's an American company, obviously. The old owner of the promoter didn't understand, didn't like the US, and never thought. There was a lot of attempts to come to the US with Formula One, but they were all not good attempts. The first good attempt was from Austin about 10 years ago. They put a good race on. The Austin promoter did a fantastic job, Tavo Helmond and Bobby Epstein, to put that one on. And I think from that on, it grew. Then obviously Haas came in, then Liberty Media took over, and all of a sudden we are here. We had a meeting with the commissioner of NFL, Goodell, I think is his last name, yeah. A few races ago, he came to our F1 race, and we talked about it, and he said Formula One made it now to the US, and he has got a good feeling what sport is here to stay now in the US. So I think 3 races in the moment is the maximum we can have in the US, otherwise we are getting too heavy. But a lot of people say it's too many, but I don't think so, because in Europe we have got 8 races, And Silverstone from Barcelona is a lot closer than Miami from Austin. You know, people forget that the United States are a big country. So I think we are very good in the US now. The thing now to do in the US is stabilize it. You know, not just trying to grow it, stabilize the market. People get used to it, they like it, and not always try to do more, but now try to do better. And I think the races in the US, between them, they are so different, they are for so different people, they are so far distant, it's not a problem. The role of Haas, I think F1 is such a global sport that where the team comes from is not as important in a lot of other sports. It's not as important like in the Soccer World Cup, you know. There you go with your country. In Formula One, it's one of those things, obviously, we try to use it a little bit to being from the United States, but not push it too hard because it's such a global sport, Formula One, that you have fans wherever, which could be fans of Ferrari. And Ferrari, I think the only really national team is Ferrari's, the Italian national team. All the other ones, I think they could, I wouldn't say from anywhere, but we always forget also about Red Bull is not an English team. Red Bull actually is an Austrian team. Not many people know that, you know. So, but who identifies Red Bull with an Austrian team? Nobody. It's Red Bull, you know. That's what it is. So I think it helps a little bit that Haas is here, but it's not a big thing. But I think in the US just by having 3 good races, by being introduced to the sport a little bit more like in the old days, and not had failures or attempted failures, we are in a good place now.
Yeah, thank you for that. Sorry. Thank you for that. I'm Nicole, and I'm a sophomore at the college. It's great to have you here. I was just wondering what you envision the future of electric vehicles in Formula One racing, and specifically, what kind of challenges do you think this integration will pose for teams?
I think as of now, in the midterm, Formula One will not go all electric. We have got a new regulation for 2026, which is the percentage of electric energy will be higher than it's now. We increase it, but we still will have a combustion engine to drive the car. There is a few elements. The noise, people love the noise in Formula One, and because it's nice to hear a car. And also, I mentioned it briefly before, I think electric power is not the end solution for transportation in this world. There is more than one solution. I'm not saying electric is not good. Electric will be good for some things, but what we are working really hard for 2026 is sustainable fuel and being CO2 neutral by 2013 as an industry. What the CO2 of the race cars, what we do over a weekend, it's very, very small. There is a lot more which we can help with it. So I don't think Formula One will go fully electric in the near future.
Obviously, you were just talking about your career throughout motorsport. And then also we're talking earlier about how there are so many different people that actually go into the team, not just the drivers. And you've filled a lot of those roles yourself. So looking back as a founder now and a team principal now, which of those roles that you've filled has been like the most fulfilling, and which ones have been a little bit more challenging maybe?
I think the most fulfilling is what I do now, being team principal, because in the end, it's nice to have responsibility, because being a team principal is not only, everybody thinks it's just having good days, it's having a lot of bad days, but also taking on responsibility for things, but also on the other side, giving jobs to a lot of people, which people sometimes forget when you are an entrepreneur. What you do for society is pretty good. It's not only what you do for yourself. It's also when you look back and you give a lot of work to a lot of families, which they can make a living out of it, and they like to do it. So the most challenging one, I always saw every challenge I had in any of the jobs I did as an opportunity to move on, to get better. So sometimes, I mean, even these days, sometimes you struggle with making decisions. Is it the right decision? Do I do the right thing? But you have got always challenges. But then I see every challenge as an opportunity to do better, to learn about and to move on. But to move on as a person, but also for the company or the team you work, you know. So I never am afraid of a challenge, you know. So therefore, I didn't mind any of them.
So going back to your experience as a team principal, you've helped Haas develop from the bottom of the field to a midfielder now. How did you bring about that change? Was it a shift in mindset for the team, a culture?
And I need to clarify, in the moment we are at the bottom again, which I'm not really proud of it, So, no, coming in, it's just when we started off, we knew that we were critiqued, as I said before as well. There was a lot of naysayers. Then the first year we finished 8th, the second year we finished 8th, then the third year we finished 5th. 19 we didn't have a good car, but again I think we finished 8 or 9, something like this. And then 2020 and 21 happened with the COVID. We were in not a good place. And now, since last year, we started to come back again. And what I always tell people in the team, obviously, is like, guys, we have been 5th. We can do it, because anything you do in life, you need to believe. The first one to believe in is in yourself, that you can do it. That is very important to me. Not being arrogant about it, but you need to believe it. And if you can tell people, it's the same, a lot of the same people we had in 2018 when we finished 5th. It's like, guys, we did it. We didn't get stupid over the years. We had difficult times to go over. There was a reason why we fell back. But we can if we work hard, we can achieve it. And if you did it before, it's a lot easier to say. You can do it, we just need to work hard. And obviously, it is a competition. And at some stage, somebody needs to finish last. Not that ever you want to be last, but you need to live with that one and not getting down on yourself because you're last. You need to get up on yourself because you're last, because you want to prove that you are better than that. And that is the thing I always try to install in people when they are down. Sometimes it's not easy, the challenge, to do this, because these people are doing this year 23 races or 22 because one we didn't go to. But next year is 24 races. They work hard, and when you are tired and the jet lag and the travel and all that stuff, it's easy to be, I don't want to do this. I mean, we are last. This is not good. But you always need to keep a positive mind. It's nothing different for me. I'm also just a human being. On a Sunday night or Monday morning when you didn't score points, it's not a good moment. But then I normally, on a Monday night, I'm driven so much that I want to do better again. And the same is what I try to install with people. Guys, we keep on pushing. We get there where we have been. It's not something we need to achieve. We never achieve. No, we have done it, guys. Let's go.
One more.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if you could share one of your favorite behind-the-scenes memories from filming Drive to Survive.
I actually, because I need to explain this Drive to Survive thing, how I see it, how I live it. If I say I don't know that they're filming, it's not that I don't know. I know I'm not this dumb, but I actually do not care, and do not care in a positive way. I do not intentionally look, do I do it for the camera? So, I mean, what they film is what they get, so I don't even know what they have filmed, to be honest. And this is not, I'm not saying it to say, I put a mic on, and, in the beginning when you put a mic on, you think I need to think about the mic, because what you say, because during a day in racing, I say a lot of stupid things, so, and after 10 minutes, I've forgotten about it. But it gets so natural. And when you've got a good relationship with the people which do the filming, you know that they will not use it against you. That is always nice to know. So I don't really, like people say, and I haven't seen it. This, what I saw in the beginning, was Professor Ricketts put up there. I hadn't seen before. So for me, it's not like I need to do this for camera. No, I do my job and they do the filming. So I don't really... I have no influence what is done, because they do it all themselves. And I explain also why I don't intentionally didn't want to see it, because then you think about it consciously, and I try to run a race team with all the brain power I've got and not look how I should look for the camera, because I'm not an actor. An actor needs to watch himself to get better next time he's acting. I'm not an actor, so I don't need to look at myself. If it isn't good enough, they just don't put it on film. So I'm fine with it, I keep it very simple, some of the things.
Great. I want to thank our panel. Thank you guys very much. You guys want to... if you guys can stay in your seats just for a second, Guenther. The class has a couple things for you. Now, I know you could go to the bookstore yourself and buy something. So, and by the way, we're not as good at branding as, well, Harvard's pretty good at branding.
You're pretty good, guys.
But this class we're doing up, so I want to give you the first ever If you want to get a zoom in on that, ES139 Harvard hat. Innovation. You can wear this around Toto and the others. So there's our first class hat to receive.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you have a daughter.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Greta.
Greta, she's a freshman in high school?
Yeah.
Okay. So we got her a shirt for her. Now, this is not contractual, but we went ahead and added something that we hopefully can be there. So this is our gift to her from the class. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Professor. Thank you very much.